Good evening and welcome to the to the Monday, is it Monday or Tuesday? Monday, May 25th, Finance and Property Standing Committee public session. Trustees, please raise your hand if you have questions. Your name will be added to the speakers list and I will recognize you when it is your turn to speak. Today in person we have Trustee Mahmood, Trustee Butterworth, and Trustee Michael Chen, and online we have Trustee Jenny Chen, Trustee Pamela McCarthy, and Trustee Melanie Wright. So we'll begin tonight's session with the land acknowledgement. The chair will call on Trustee Michael Chen.
Thank you, Chair. We affirm that we are all treaty people and acknowledge that the York Region District School Board is located on the lands of two treaties. These treaties have been signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations and the First Nations of the Williams Treaties, who are the Mississaugas of Alderville, Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Scugog Island, and the Chippewas of Beausoleil, Rama, and Georgina Island, who is our closest neighbor and partner in education. To honor this agreement, we will take up our responsibility to be respectful of their tradition, knowledge, and inherent rights as sovereign nations. We will respect their relationship with these lands and recognize that our connection to this land is through the continued relationship with these First Nations, and we acknowledge our shared responsibility to respect and care for the land and water for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Chen. So the first item is the approval of the agenda. Without objection, the agenda shall be approved. Are there any objections? Okay, as there are no objections, the agenda is approved. The next item is the declaration of conflicts of interest. If any member of the Finance and Property Standing Committee has a direct personal interest or pecuniary interest in any matters being discussed during the meeting, please state their conflict and the nature thereof. There are no declared conflicts. The minutes of the previous Finance and Property Standing Committee public session have all been distributed to committee members. Are there any corrections to the minutes? There are no corrections to the minutes. And the minutes are approved as presented. So our first items will be the 2026-2027 budget input presentations. So in keeping with our board's annual budget process and our commitment to consultation, we will be hearing from each of our advisory committees. First, the chair would like to invite Special Education Advisory Committee Chair Lynn Zeraldo to speak on behalf of SEAC. The chair calls upon Lynn Zeraldo.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of SEAC. There is a PowerPoint presentation, which I think someone is putting up there. Hopefully. I don't see it yet.
It's visible. Thank you.
Oh, it is visible? Okay. I just can't see it, which is not a good thing. All right, I can't see it, so I'll just keep going and assuming that it will be turned over to the page when needed. So first of all, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the Board of Trustees and the Budget Committee for giving us this opportunity to do our presentation. We always look forward to having discussions at SEAC about funding and about budget and being able to present our material to you. So in starting off in our PowerPoint, the definitions of disability, ableism, and disability justice is crucial as we go through our recommendations that we have that lens. the guiding principles that we've always worked on for the budget discussions is about acknowledging a student's right, including a student and family voice, promoting self-advocacy, reflecting accessibility, and attitudes, beliefs, and practices reflect accessible education and training related to equity, equality, and inclusive practice and human rights. The multi-year plan and the director's plan is the foundation that we work from as well, as far as student achievement, health and well-being, and human rights and inclusive action. We really understand these priorities and how they're connected to the director's plan and system action, whether it's delivering responsive instruction and assessment, providing, enhancing professional development, and prioritizing achievement in literacy and math. I'm assuming these slides are being presented because, as I said, I can't see them. Now we're at the special education numbers. So we look at students that are enrolled, 126,360, and then students with IEPs in York Region District School Board, 22,779. That's about 18%. Last year it was 17%. And these are there's approximately 1 in 6 students who need the service that York Region District School Board offers and has been very supportive of. We realize that we're in a different time right now with reduced enrollment, but as I will say later on, that it is crucial that we at least maintain for our students, our most vulnerable students, what we have had to service them. I wanted to bring your attention to the transition strategy and the 4 priority areas: planning and preparing, accessible and inclusive environments, and building knowledge, capacity, and collaborative relationships. This strategy starts with students' voice, choice, and agents. Students are the center of this strategy and should guide the work we do. So as we're moving forward through the process, I think you'll find that the transition strategy is one good way of doing it. Support students with disabilities from entry through graduation is everyone's responsibility. The vision in this strategy is essential for some and good for all. Next page, you talk about planning and preparing. Honoring student and family priorities allows strategic transition planning, which is a crucial strategy and recommendation that we have. When you look at accessible and inclusive environments, teachers required are skilled and effective. Staff, including teachers, educational assistants, and our support staff, meet all our accessibility standards, de-streaming and inclusive practices in homerooms, keep pathways open. Go to the building knowledge and capacity. Knowing the strengths, identities, and priorities of our learners allows us the selection of high quality evidence-based programs. So reducing the stigma, working with the processing charts, the resiliency and mattering and belonging and executive functioning skills requires staff and coaching mentorship. Collaborative relationships, we do a great job in York Region of curriculum and instruction, inclusive school and community, research and assessment, working hand in hand of how do we look at servicing our students with special education and also trying to honor student and family voice in the implementation of that. Important to note that this presentation is accompanied by a more comprehensive and detailed summary of all the input from SEAC members which you have received. The nuggets of information captured on the following slides represent those responses where several members have said that. And of course, the achievement data, including the EQAO, consistently highlights the need to invest in our students with disabilities. So when you look at the transition strategy, the specific priorities are for SEAC was transition navigators, ableism, accessibility and disability, empowering the tier 3, early intervention and screening, key staff in place who are skilled and responsive, full range of support and placement options, full range of timely mental health supports, and specific programs and partnerships with community agencies. In addition, understanding the process affects learning. The waterfall chart isn't known. It's one of the best resources out there throughout Ontario. And the specific priorities for the SEAC at that point was knowing the learner, universal design, differential instruction, accessibility, and inclusive environments. Understand how we learn through that process, knowing the learner, specialized staff training and coaching and embedded education throughout. And the specific priorities, tier 1, again, you'll see a pattern of inclusive, accessible, and evidence-based practice for our students. Tier 2, individualized assessment and based interventions with input from student and family. And 3, highly interventions for the very few students that require. SEAC wishes that the board ensures that mental health supports, high quality evidence-based instruction, inclusive environments are embedded in all we do in the classrooms. This will ensure the very few students requiring additional, more individual. This also requires the investment of staff and training required. The tiered approach is that systemic sequential instructional approach that uses specific instruction interventions of increasing intensity to address. For those students that do not require more specialized interventions and supports, SEAC wishes the board will invest in the professional support staff that enable specialized assessments and intervention to be assessed in a timely manner. You know, there are resources out there through the K-12 standards, and the one that our board has done, which is from the K-12 standards, which was to do with the transition strategy. And those documents are you can do the link for that. In closing, I would just like to say that the power of listening to our students and families, good for all, necessary for some, essential for a few. In closing, fairness is not sameness. Fairness does not mean everyone gets the same. Fairness means everyone gets what they needed. Our learners need to have a fair playing field to be able to reach their potential. What we do in special education helps all. Needs are increasing and the complexity is increasing. So maintaining our status quo is vital to be able to continue to do the services that we have done for our students in York Region. I'll take the time to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lynn Zeraldo, for the presentation. Do we have any questions? Trustee Mahmood?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, thank you very much, Lynn, for bringing up always refreshing how detailed the committee works, and then bring up their recommendations, right? Since sometimes it feels overwhelming, so I just want to know if there are any additional recommendations. Sometimes when budget time comes in, we wanted to continue what we're doing, right? Often this is the case. Is it possible for Lynn just to give us a few of the items which you are thinking that may have not worked well and we need to keep in mind or reinforce them, if you may?
Lynn Zeraldo?
You know, it's a good question. And I think, is there anything that I would sit there and we would say as SEAC, oh my goodness, we're not doing a really good job on that and we need to change it up. I think our board is doing as good of a job as they can with the resources that are available. And the pieces that I addressed in the PowerPoint and also that's in the other document, those were the priorities, you know, to do with transitions, to do with IEPs, to do with staff training. to ensure that our regional support staff are there to be available for assessments and mental health. And I think the three departments working together has shown a huge difference about how we can make it better for our students with special ed. I would not say that SEAC would say, okay, make sure you do this. I think they would say, maintain what we have, you know, and figure out ways of how we can be even more creative. You know, it's always hard when I'm asked by trustees or by the minister, you know, is there one thing that you would point out? And the one thing for me is student voice, student achievement, and collaboration with everyone in relationships.
Thank you. Trustees, do we have any other questions? Okay, it appears there are no questions. Thank you, Lynn, for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Now we will move on to our Equity and Inclusivity Advisory Committee, EAC. So the chair would like to invite Equity and Inclusivity Advisory Committee Chair Hafid Rahman to speak on behalf of EAC. Hafid Rahman, please go ahead.
Through you, Chair. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very kindly for having me here this evening. I'll try to be brief through this, but I also want to be detailed. Is the presentation being projected in the room and on screens?
Yes, it is.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very kindly. Pardon me, I'm having some challenges seeing it at my end, but I'm going to operate, and maybe I'll ask maybe Michelle or someone to flip the screen as we're going through the discussion today. Look, EAC, as many of you already are aware, is committed to providing advice about the development and implementation of the board's equity and inclusivity strategy, our policies, our procedures. We work hard to provide feedback to support the board in addressing all dimensions of diversity, which certainly include but are not limited to ancestry, culture, ethnicity, gender identity and expression, language, physical and intellectual ability, race, sex, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status. So we are really focused on providing advice in all of these realms. Our aim really is to support all of the priorities of our multi-year strategic plan, and you're going to see the multi-year strategic plan referenced throughout this presentation for that reason. And it's really guided by championing equity and inclusivity in all aspects of the board works for all students and their family. And I'll tell you, you know, student achievement has to be at the heart of all of this. Our goal is really to present recommendations to the board today and to the Board of Trustees Finance and Property Standing Committee to really ensure that that our board, and I say our board, you know, creates and sustains equitable and inclusive learning and working environments in all schools and workplaces of the board. If we can move on to the next slide, please. Our objective is really to maintain funding for key priorities. One, to build and this is certainly in line with our district action plan, you know, centering student achievement. We really want to recommend maintaining funding for the following priorities. One, building educator capacity in anti-oppression, intersectionality, and culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy, to strengthen foundational learning skills in all areas with a continued focus on literacy and numeracy, and that's key in accordance with the minister's directive. We want to provide ongoing professional learning opportunities to collaboration between ISCS, student services, and curriculum and instructional services. We want to ensure a coordinated and responsive support to address barriers and meet the diverse strengths and needs of our students. Again, focusing on student success, providing targeted school-based support through interdepartmental consultants to strengthen equity-focused instructional practices, to really help those students learn. Again, keeping that focus on literacy and numeracy. Support educators in implementing high-impact teaching strategies that improve student outcomes in foundational learning skills, with a continued focus on literacy and numeracy, providing release time. And this is an important one for our educators to be able to engage in collaborative inquiry, professional learning, and capacity building initiatives. And and that's a key piece for us, because ensuring that our teachers get the meaningful PD is a critical piece for us to maintain. You'll notice, just to call out, that there are brackets beside each of the key bullets, and those point to the areas in either the multi-year strategic plan or the district active plan where these items are actually called out. Happy to elucidate upon any of those throughout our discussion here today. We can kindly flip to the next slide. Um, um, Continued, prioritization of the following is certainly important. Implementing student leadership programs in partnership with our community organizations, and one of the beauties of EAC is our partners with a variety of organizations across York Region. We want to continue that focus, providing staff and student training on AI tools to better support diverse student needs, improve student achievement, and support equitable outcomes. We have been making a considerable investment in AI this year in the board, and we want to build on that to focus on these equitable outcomes. And we want to make data-informed budgetary decisions that prioritize student needs while centering our marginalized students. We want to be smart with the way that we're making decisions over the course of the year. If I can move on to the next section on health and well-being. Wonderful, thank you. We'd like to center health and well-being in line with our district action plan, and we recommend maintaining funding for the following key priorities. One, expanding partnerships with identity-specific community agencies to provide culturally relevant mental health and well-being support for our students and families. We'd like to create safe, inclusive, and affirming spaces where racialized and marginalized students and staff can share experiences, build community, and access meaningful support. Again, all of these are tied directly back to our system actions. And if we can kindly move to the next slide, please. Continuing on this front, we want to engage staff to continue and really ensure that for prioritizing engaging staff and building and strengthening partnership with school communities that reflect, affirm, and support the diverse intersectional identities of students and families, and providing professional learning opportunities for students and staff that promote mental and physical health and well-being, inclusive learning and work environments. We're going to be, addressing a critical gap that currently exists within our board. If we can proceed to the next slide. Now, again, continuing with the multi-strategic plan, focusing on human rights and inclusive education. Obviously, this has a very strong tie into the work that EAC is doing. So, finally, in alignment with our DAP and the commitment to human rights and inclusive education, we recommend maintaining funding for the following budget priorities by continuing to provide professional learning that strengthens inclusive and its disability affirming mindsets through anti-ableism and disability justice learning opportunities, building on what Lynn Zeraldo said. Continue implementation of the Inclusive Education Initiative to support staff in identifying and addressing systemic oppression through anti-oppressive, anti-ableist, anti-racist, and inclusive pedagogical practices, and further invest in partnerships, learning opportunities, and resources developed in collaborations with our First Nations, Métis, and Inuit communities. And lastly, but certainly not least, continue advancing the work of the Center for Black Student Excellence and implementing actions aligned with dismantling anti-Black racism strategy. Our DABR strategy has gone through a lot of evolution over the last little while. Really, refining the tactics to support Black student achievement, such as incorporate. So the things that we've been doing is with EAC and the great work that Lois is doing in inclusive services with our grad coaches, pathways and transition supports and specialized programming are all tied to making this DABRA strategy a reality. There are some solid measurable outcomes tied to each of these work pieces, and this is the place that we cannot take the pedal off the proverbial gas with. So we'd really like to see that continue. If we can move to the next slide, please. So as we're continuing, we want to continue to develop and support diverse student representation on communities and diverse advisory spaces, centering students as co-leaders and amplifying student voice through initiatives such as the Youth Space and Identity Specific Student Associations. We want to strengthen family and community engagement by addressing barriers to participation, including things like access to translation and interpretation. I know we're doing a great job with our new board websites, but we want to be able to bolster that and really refine some of those pieces where it's required and applicable. So this will allow us to really gather meaningful feedback on identity affirming programs and practices. Again, we're not surveying, we're not doing form, but we just want to be able to leverage what exists in our communities through the interactions that we're already having with our communities to get information to better service those specific needs and pivot those things towards student achievement. And lastly, prioritize research and leadership resources to effectively measure, monitor, and support inclusive leadership practices across the system. And this is something that we are certainly spending a lot of time on doing. Those are the key priorities. Again, all tied to our multi-year strategic plan as well as our district action plan. And I open the floor up to questions from the committee. Thank you very kindly for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. Trustees, do we have any questions? Trustee Butterworth?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for a really in-depth, input. Really appreciate that. I just have a question. And I missed it, so I just want some clarification. When you were talking about health and well-being and your input in that particular part of the multi-year strategic plan, you talked about something about addressing a gap, and I missed that part, what you meant by that. If you could just enlighten me on that part. Thank you.
Hafid Rahman?
Certainly. Look, I think I was speaking the trustee in more generalities in terms of opportunities across our board. So I think that there are pockets where we are not serving all of the health and well-being needs of our student population. So I guess what I'd like to be able to see is a greater focus on the work that we're doing at this point, and continuing that work effort so that we can reach all of our marginalized students so that we can have some better opportunities to provide meaningful support. So no specific gap in particular, but I was speaking more in general terms when I addressed the gap.
Thank you very much. Trustee Butterworth?
Yes, no, I heard that, and I thought, I think I better ask for clarification just so that I understood what you were saying completely. So thank you.
Thank you very, very kindly.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Trustee Michael Chen.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to thank Hafid for reminding us in your presentation that expanding the partnership with the community is very important. I remember back in 2023, I was approached by parents regarding a faith group, a community services called Nasiha Mental Health. And at the time, they were not an official partner. So I had the opportunity to bridge that connection in, and eventually this organization becomes one of our partners that can help our Muslim identifying students to provide faith-sensitive mental health support or crisis services. So I think it's very important that we're all reminded at this point that everybody can play a part in reaching out and finding that connections to bring all this resource to our communities, student and family community at YRDSB. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Hafid, go ahead.
No, thank you very kindly, trustee. And I think I think organizations like Nasiha and others are doing great work. And what's great is the work that they're providing, not just for the Muslim community, but for all students that use their services and their helplines. Is those are provided at no cost to the board and funded independently by organizations like Nasiha. So to the extent that we can continue to engage them and to learn from them about issues that are impacting our community, and also providing those supports to our students, I couldn't agree with you more. So thank you very kindly for calling that out.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? As there are no further questions, we'll move on to the next presentation. Thank you very much, Hafid, for your presentation.
Thank you very kindly.
The next item will be the Parent, Family, and Community Engagement Advisory Committee, PIAC, presentation. For that, the chair would like to invite the PIAC co-chairs, Rennie Fang and Venna Cardin, to speak on behalf of PIAC. Go ahead.
Thank you. Slide. Good evening, everyone. Before I move into the report, I would like to take a moment to briefly introduce the mandate of PIAC. Could you? Thank you. PIAC exists to support, encourage, and strengthen parent engagement at the board level with the ultimate goal of improving student achievement and well-being. As a parent committee, our role is not only to represent parent voices, but also to help build stronger connections between families, school councils, schools, and the board. We do this by providing information and advice on parent engagement, supporting communication with school councils, and sharing effective practices that help parents support their children's learning both at home and at school. Another important part of our mandate is identifying and reducing barriers to parent engagement. This is crucial because when families feel informed, welcomed, and respected, they are more confident in participating. That's our students' benefit. In a word, PIAC hopes to continue serving as a bridge between families and the education system, helping ensure that parent voices are heard, valued, and reflected in the decisions that affect our students. Today, PIAC's recommendations are, next slide please, are organized into 3 closely connected areas: student achievement, health and well-being, and human rights and inclusive education. These recommendations are grounded in the feedback and perspectives shared through the parent survey. When we speak about the student achievement, PIAC's goal is to demonstrate the board's commitment to integrating foundational skills across subject areas in ways that honor all pathways. First, PIAC recommends prioritizing literacy and numeracy as a foundation for all learning. Strong skills in math, science, language, and literacy are essential for students' post-secondary opportunities, career readiness, and long-term success. These foundations give students the confidence and tools they need to move forward, no matter what pathway they choose. Second, we recommend modernized learning so that it reflects today's world. Students are growing up in a time when digital tools, artificial intelligence, and new ways of communications are shaping how people learn and work. PIAC believes students need responsible exposure to AI, digital literacy, and critical thinking skills so they are prepared to use these tools wisely and ethically. Third, PIAC recommends redesigning classroom structures to better meet diverse students' needs. Every student learns differently, and our communities are more diverse. We believe it is important to rethink grouping models, support delivery, and resources allocations. so that all students can receive learning experiences that are appropriate, inclusive, and meaningful. Fourth, we recommend using technology and AI as enablers of learning, not as an added workload. Technology should help educators, not overwhelm them. When used well, digital tools can reduce administrative burden, support the differentiated instruction, and give teachers more time to focus on students. Finally, PIAC recommends strengthening family engagement through transparency and partnership. With clear communication, academic expectations, and practical tools, families are better able to support learning at home and build stronger partnerships with schools. Overall, PIAC recognizes that achievement is not only about grades, but also about whether students are prepared, supported, confident, and able to succeed in the world they are entering. Now, Vanna will continue with our recommendations on the second part.
Student health and well-being remain a key priority. These are a few areas we believe need continued focus and support. Increase mental health supports to match the urgency of student needs. Move beyond incremental approaches to better address the rising levels of student stress, anxiety, and the complexity we are seeing in schools today. Strengthen safe, inclusive, and supportive school environments. Prioritize anti-bullying efforts, trauma-informed practices, and consistent behavioral supports that help build empathy, accountability, and confidence in students. Invest in physical well-being as a driver of learning and resilience. Support nutrition programs, physical activity, outdoor learning, and fitness opportunities that promote student focus, resilience, and positive mental health. Equip families to support student well-being in a digital world. Provide families with guidance and tools to help navigate the online spaces where much of the student's social and emotional development now takes place. Shift investment toward bold pilots that can scale system-wide, test innovative and integrated well-being models, measure their impact, and expand the approaches that demonstrate meaningful results across the system. Next slide, please.
The third important area PIAC would like to speak to is human rights and inclusive education, which demonstrates the board's commitment to celebrating and affirming our diverse identities and communities, and building partnerships that serve students and families while providing opportunities for community engagement. From a parent perspective, inclusion should not mean treating every student exactly the same. Therefore, first and foremost, PIAC recommends that inclusion be understood as responsiveness, not sameness. Every student comes with different strengths, needs, identities, and lived experiences. True inclusion means creating learning conditions where each student feels seen, supported, respected, and appropriately challenged rather than applying one-size-fits-all approaches. Second, we believe that human rights and inclusion must be embedded into everyday classroom practice. Inclusive education should not only appear in policy documents, curricular language, or special events. Students should be able to experience inclusion in their daily learning, in classroom discussions, in teaching materials, in relationships with peers, and in the ways where support is provided. Third, PIAC recommends strengthening school cultures that are grounded in respect and belonging. This includes continuing to enhance bullying prevention and positive peer relationship strategies. For students who may feel different, whether because of ability, language, culture, identity, or learning needs, a safe and welcoming school culture can make a significant difference. The fourth recommendation is to promote shared learning across schools and regions. PIAC believes real examples of inclusive practices should be identified, shared, and expanded across the system so effective ideas can benefit more students and communities. Finally, PIAC recommends leveraging families and lived experiences as valuable assets. When families are invited to share their knowledge and perspectives in meaningful ways, schools can better understand students and build stronger, more respectful partnerships. In conclusion, PIAC believes that inclusive education is not only about access, it's about dignity, belonging, participation, and opportunity. This concludes our report for tonight. These recommendations are rooted in the parent survey, and I would like to sincerely thank all parents' representatives who contributed their voices, insights, and experiences. Your input helped shape these recommendations and brought forward the priorities, concerns, and hopes of families across our communities. As parents and partners in education, we hope these recommendations will support continued dialogue and meaningful action for all students. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rennie and Venna. Trustees, do we have any questions? Trustee Mahmood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's really good. Thank you very much for the co-chairs to come in and present this. I've read the report before coming here in the presentation. So to you, if I can get a clarification, and if I'm just trying to put my head there, although the discussion is around budget timing and everything is on the survey of the budget, but a lot of these recommendations are where we just need to make an effort and then do that, may not be having any dent or any impact on the budget though, right? Is that my understanding is correct, or I'm just trying to oversimplify it?
Rennie and Venna.
Well, if we could pivot over to Superintendent Grant Fothrope to answer that question directly, that'd be great. Yeah, is that okay?
And through you, Chair. To answer your question, Trustee Mahmood, and hi. A few of these items, as you've indicated, would be reprioritizing a time allocation of already existing staff. But at the same time, I think acknowledging too, and I don't want to speak for the group, but I certainly saw the responses to the survey, that looking for allocation to specific areas of priority, like mental health that was indicated, for instance. And a series of other items that were prioritized. So again, there's certainly, as it's listed here, there are certainly pieces that I think that could be attributed to redistribution of time allocation for existing staff. But as well, I think, the group, and looking to the co-chairs, and don't want to certainly represent your voice, but speaking as I looked at the surveys, that some of the pieces too would be looking for a budgetary allocation as well too. So for things like mental health and a series of other things in terms of inclusivity, equity that you spoke about, right? Yes, absolutely. So both? Yes. Does that answer your question okay, Trustee Moon?
Yes, that does. Thank you very much, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to our next item, which will be the information items. First, we have the 2026-2027 budget input survey findings. For that, the chair would like to invite Manager Aaron Sine to speak to the item.
Good evening, everyone. Through you, Chair Kolosky, we are pleased to present highlights from the 2026-27 budget survey, including in your agenda package. So we have a slide deck. I believe it's going to be on the screen. This work reflects extensive consultation, both internally and externally, throughout the budget development process. Each year, the board invites families and community members to participate, helping ensure that community voice informs planning and decision-making. The public budget survey is a key component of this broader consultation process. It complements feedback gathered through public consultation opportunities and helps provide a more complete picture of community priorities and perspectives. Tonight, I'm joined by my colleague, Jamie Herman, Associate Manager from Research and Assessment Services, to present this report together with me. Next, please. In this presentation, we will review the budget survey background and purpose, key highlights, and we will have opportunity for question and discussions. Next, please. Here are some quick overview of the report. Budget survey was available in 18 languages. It was voluntary and anonymous, administered between March 24th and April 17, 2026, and communicated via several media channels in collaboration with our communication department. A total of 4,159 participants completed the survey. This represents a 48% increase from last year, an additional 1,342 responses, indicating stronger engagement across our community. Consistent with previous years, the largest respondent group was parents and guardians, followed by YRDSB employees and York Region residents. Responses were also geographically representative, reflecting municipalities across York Region in proportions with similar to previous years. Overall, the data provides a strong and reliable picture of community perspectives. Next, please. This slide gives a high-level overview of what we heard across all focus areas in the survey. The full report shows results for each question using clear charts and short explanation. If you like more detail, you can refer to the appendices. Appendix A includes a table with responses counts, and Appendix B includes additional charts. These are found on pages 22 and 29 of the report. In Appendix B, Figure 14 shows all focus areas from highest to lowest priority overall, and Figures 15 to 19 shows the same results by respondent groups. Overall, priorities were very consistent across groups with only small differences. Even though we had nearly 50% more responses this year, the overall priority order stayed the same as last year. The areas rated most important in 2025-26 were again rated most important in 2026-27. Overall, the data shows a stable and shared view of key budget priorities. Participants also share reasons for their choices, which are summarized in the report for added context. Given our time, tonight we will focus on the top 3 priority areas, and I'll now turn it over to Jamie to walk us through these top 3 priority areas.
So the area that received the highest priority rating is a healthy and safe learning environment for all. So that's things like safe and clean facilities and facility improvements. This focus area was in the top 3 for all respondent groups. And you can move to the next slide. Thank you. So on this visual, you can see the percentage of survey respondents who rated this investment area as a high, moderate, low, or not a priority. And as mentioned, respondents provided rationales for their selection, and we summarized these rationales for those who selected high priority and low or not a priority. So for respondents who selected high priority, they emphasized that safe, clean, and well-maintained school facilities are essential for student learning, mental health, and well-being. They highlighted the importance of facility maintenance and improvement, like things like heating and cooling, infrastructure and cleanliness, and adequate caretaking staff. Respondents who assigned a low or non-priority rating indicated that current funding levels for facilities should be maintained as schools are generally safe and clean. They emphasized the importance of more efficient use and accountability of existing resources and identified other priorities as more pressing than additional investments in facility maintenance. The second highest rated priority area was classroom-based support staff to foster a culture of care. So things like educational assistants, developmental support workers, intervention support workers, and child and youth workers. Respondents who selected this as a high priority emphasized the critical role of classroom-based support staff in creating a safe, inclusive, and supportive learning environment. They highlighted the need for individualized support for students with diverse academic, social, emotional, behavioral, and mental health needs, including students in crisis, and stressed the importance of trained staff to support de-escalation and safety. Respondents also noted that classroom-based support staff alleviate pressure on teachers by reducing the student-adult ratios and allowing educators to focus on instruction. Respondents who viewed classroom-based support staff as a low or non-priority indicated that current funding was sufficient or that student needs could be addressed through other focus areas, such as special education, mental health, or external community services. They also emphasized that using alternative approaches to supporting students, such as smaller class sizes, more teachers, additional teacher training, and targeted use of support staff targeted particularly in the early years or to specific programs rather than across all classrooms. The third highest rated priority area is programs and resources to support students with special education needs. You can go ahead 2 slides. Thank you. So that's things like special education staffing and specialized equipment. This focus area was in the top 3 for all respondent groups. Respondents who selected this as a high priority emphasized the importance of equitable access to learning for students with special education needs, noting that schools are supporting a growing number of students with increasingly complex needs. They highlighted the need for timely assessments and early intervention, as well as the importance of specialized staffing, individualized supports, specialized equipment, and appropriate programs and placements to help students access the curriculum effectively. Respondents noted that prioritizing special education resources benefits all students and supports the board's commitment to equity, inclusion, and human rights. Respondents who assign this a low or not priority rating expressed concerns about resource allocation in this area and believe that current funding is sufficient or argue for proportional distribution among all students. Respondents suggested alternative strategies or changes to how supports are delivered instead of increasing investments to this area. Next slide, please. Thank you. Participants were also invited to provide additional feedback about other areas, programs, or resources in which the board should prioritize that were not listed in the previous question. So here you can see the additional investment areas suggested by the participants. For class size and staffing, respondents highlighted the need for smaller classes, fewer split grades, and more educators to support student well-being and achievement. For core subjects, respondents highlighted the importance of focusing on core subjects like math, English, and science, and providing resources and support for educators in these areas. For the arts, respondents highlighted the importance of putting resources towards the arts, things like art materials, instruments, staffing, field trips, and courses. For classroom materials, respondents highlighted the importance of prioritizing classroom budgets to go towards classroom materials, such as books, photocopying, technology, textbooks, etc. For experiential learning, respondents highlighted the value of experiential learning, including field trips, outdoor education, and learning beyond the classroom, and deepening student engagement in learning. Respondents also advocated that money be allocated towards extracurricular activities such as sports, clubs, teams, and community engagement activities. Respondents also requested an emphasis on AI literacy for students, AI professional learning for staff, and optimizing AI for organizational efficiencies like planning and timetabling. Now I'll turn it over to Erhan for the next survey question.
Thank you, Jamie. And finally, if you go to the next, yes. And finally, participants were also asked what cost-efficient or innovative ideas they have to help YRDSB allocate resources more effectively. Respondents wrote about resource sharing and smart allocation. For example, share staff and resources across schools, focus budget on core student needs, and remove redundancies. Community support and partnership, for example, leverage community supports through fundraising and volunteering. Ideas for revenue generation, such as rent out facilities, increased permit fees, and increased international student fees. Purchasing practices, ensure board approved vendors, offer competitive pricing, underused spaces, close low enrollment schools, share underused facilities, and create multi-purpose learning environments, and facilities and energy efficiencies, update heating, cooling systems, LED lights and solar panels, and energy audits. Next, please. And we can take some questions if you have.
Thank you very much, Erhan and Jamie, for the presentation. Trustees, do we have any questions? Trustee Butterworth.
Thank you very much for the report and for collating all of this information into a report. It was very clear, and I know that's a lot of work on your part, so thank you very much. One of the statements that was suggested, or that you said what came out of the survey and stuff, was proportional distribution of resources. Was there any explanation, or, I mean, I understand what it means, but I'm curious if anybody gave any feedback in terms of what they meant. How would we proportionally distribute? I'm just curious what was meant by that.
Erhan?
So, yeah, which one was that?
So I believe you're referring to the special education needs. One, is that for proportional distribution for those who selected a lower non-priority rating?
I'll have to go back in the slide. I wrote, because it was something that you said, and I believe you were reading it, but it was when they talked about distribution of resources. I didn't catch it was just for special ed. I thought it was, sorry, I'm just scrolling back here.
No problem. Yes, so I do believe that is for special ed, and so respondents were just saying that they believe that every student should receive an equal number of funding dollars. That's basically summarizing what they said for that one, if that helps.
Thank you, Jamie.
Okay, yeah, I'll leave it at that. If
Trustee
it comes
Butterworth?
back. Yeah, if I find something, I'll come back to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Mahmood?
Thank you very much, Chair. I mean, first of all, I want to commend the team for going through so many responses and then summarizing it for us. Make our job easier to just review those slides, and then it's always a good thing. On a positive note, of course, a lot of positive. One is that, of course, that we've seen often these type of surveys sometimes get skewed the numbers by certain groups here and there, right? But I'm really happy to see that 69% of your respondents were the parents or guardians, right? That is a positive trend that we are seeing now. We have come to that. I think that number was quite low last year, if I remember correctly. So just to encourage that to you, Chair, that is a positive number which has contributed to this survey, so which means that we are now reaching to the real people in the sense that those who get affected day in and day out, because they are the ones, parents who are engaged in the schools. That's how they're coming up with that, because that's, if you are not there, you won't know what is missing. So what I'm trying to highlight is that these are the parents. That means that the engagement of the parents at the level of the schools has increased. That's why we are seeing these participations as well, right? So all those positives are there. So thank you very much. I just want to highlight that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any response from Erhan?
That was a comment, and definitely we have 50% more return rates. And actually, if you go 1 year back, that was again up to 45%, so increase. So we have more and more engagement from our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further questions, trustees? Okay, thank you very much. There are no further questions, so we'll move on to the next item. Thank you again, Erhan and Jamie, for the presentation. The next information item will be construction projects, new elementary and secondary schools, and additions to schools. For this, the chair will invite Senior Manager Gerard Paris to speak to the item.
any questions.
Thank you, Gerard. Trustees, do we have any questions? As there are no questions, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you, Gerard. The next information item is the 2026-2027 education funding. For this, the chair would like to invite Controller Sabrina Wang to speak to the item.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. We actually prepared a slide deck to summarize the ministry memo and the major funding updates announced by ministry on May 13th. I think the PowerPoint is going to share on the screen. Okay, great, thanks. So we're going to go a very quick overview, including some content about the core education funding overview, new investments in classroom and curriculum-related funding, special education funding updates, census-based funding impacts, and other benchmark and grant adjustment and capital funding. So overall, the core education funding announcement is largely aligned with our expectation, except for some of the table amounts, which come in lower than our expectations. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes a high level of the overview of the provincial core education funding for the 2026-2027. Provincial-wise, our $30.6 billion in core education funding was provided in 26-27. This is consistent with about $30.3 billion in 25-26. YRDSB is projected to receive about $1.67 billion, represent about 5.5% of the provincial allocation, which compared to YRDSB's enrollment share of 5.8% of the total provincial enrollment. Ministry has clearly indicated in the memo that Ontario is now experiencing an enrollment inflection point. Provincially, enrollment is projected to decline by about 13,000 students. However, the decline is concentrated primarily in the GTA board. The top 3 English public boards alone, TDSB, PO board, and YRDSB, are projected to decline by approximately 15,460 students, which is partially offset by modest growth in the Eastern Ontario, Southern Western Ontario, and French language boards. Next slide, please. So Ministry announced in February that a new elementary classroom supply funding allocation of $750 per the eligible elementary teacher. The core education funding, the technical guide has clarified that $450 out of the $750 represents new investment, while the remaining $300 will be transferred from the existing core education funding allocation. So for YRDSB, the estimated net new funding is approximately $1.6 billion. Board are expected to provide the full $750 to the eligible elementary teachers, with purchases to be made through Supply Ontario, which the details is still to come. So additional implementation details for ministry, we are still waiting for some clarifications. Next slide, please. Ministry also announced new consistent curriculum resources funding to support greater or standardized curriculum-related learning resources and material across the province. YRDSB estimated allocation is about $3.6 million based on the funding formula. So similar to the elementary classroom supply funding, purchases are expected to be made through Supply Ontario. At this moment, boards are still waiting for detailed ministry the guidance regarding what is the eligible expenditure, when vendor selections and the reporting expectation, etc. So this has not been clarified. Next slide, please. So over the past several years, ministry has gradually consolidated a number of previous separate targeted grants into the core education funding. This slide summarizes the continued transition of responsive education program and the RAP funding into the broader core education funding structure. So from an administrative perspective, this simplifies the reporting and reduce the number of standalone transfer payment program. For YRDSB, about 8.4 million of REP funding, including a dual credits program, has now been transferred into core education funding. As a result, if the core education funding area, some area may appear have increased or not decreased because our enrollment declined as much as expected, part of the impact is related to this funding transition. Next slide, please. So this slide summarizes the special education funding updates. Provincial SEF funding remains relatively stable at approximately 3.83 billion in 26-27, compared to 3.85 billion in 25-26. YRDSB is projected to receive about 203.8 million, which represent 5.3% of the provincial SEF funding. As you recall, we said we have roughly 5.8% of the share of the provincial enrollment and 5.5% of the core education funding share. So we receive 5.3% of the pro-funding SEF funding. Just for your comparison, we received 213.2 million in 25-26. This reduction we have expected, SEF is going to decline through the special education per pupil amount because we have declined enrollment. However, we also see sizable reductions in another two ministry table-based funding. So one is a special education statistical prediction model, which is reduced by $2 million roughly. And another component is called measures of variability, reduced by about $800,000. So those two funding components are typically generated through ministry methodology and the provincial table amounts that were difficult for board to project independently because the funding formula is not shared with the board. So next slide, please. 26-27 school year represented the third year of the 5-year transition to update the 2021 census data. And prior to the 24-25, a lot of census data was still based on the 2006. So this is we're supposed to face in 2021 census data in 5 years, and 26-27 is about, it is the third year of the transition. With expectation, approximately 20% of the new census methodology facing each year. So YRDSB has experienced a strong increase in demographic-based funding, which was based on the census data during the first 2 years of the phase-in. But the pace of the increase is slowed down in 26-27 compared to the prior years based on the released core education funding. Again, this ministry methodology, including multiple demographic and recalibration factors that is not shared with the board, and it is difficult for us to project year over year. So the board has been seeking additional clarification from ministry and still waiting for some explanations behind the change. Next slide, please. In terms of the other benchmark and grant updates, ministry has provided 2% increase to the non-staffing benchmark to support utility, insurance, and other facility operation, which represent about $1.1 million increase for YRDSB. However, the utility and insurance cost pressures continue to exceed the benchmark increase. And except these 2%, there are no other operating benchmark increase announced, just very similar to the previous year. In terms of transportation funding, it's increased by approximately 1.5 million, while the transportation expenditure increase is currently estimated at approximately 500,000. So in addition, benefit trust funding increased by 4% for most employee group, except for OSSTF and principal and VP. But the increased trust funding is expecting with corresponding higher benefit cost. Next slide, please. So in terms of the capital funding, Ministry has allocated about $2 billion in capital funding for 26-27 to support a range of priorities, including new school construction, temporary accommodation, etc. For YRDSB, we're receiving $17 million for the school renewal, slightly less than previous year. $28.4 million for school condition improvement. This is pretty stable. And $1.8 million for temporary accommodation for portable moves, lease, and purchasing. Next slide, please. So staff are currently prepared for the 26-27 budget, which will take in consideration if the public consultation and the feedback received throughout the budget engagement process, which you have, we have the presentation earlier. The draft budget is expected to present on June the 8th, with the final budget approval on the June 16th. The rest of the ministry reporting deadline and requirement is pretty consistent with previous year. We need to submit our budget by June 30th, financial statement for 25-26 due by November 13th, and the revised estimate for 26-27 is due by December 15th, which will incorporate the enrollment adjustment after school year start. And we have kind of 7 months financial reporting for a provincial soft close due May 14th, 2027. So that, next slide. This pretty much concludes the update for the ministry grant, and we are happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sabrina Wang. Trustees, do we have any questions? Trustee Butterworth?
Thank you very much, Sabrina. That was a lot of information, so thank you for condensing that for us. I'm looking on the slide, so on my screen it would be page 72. It's about the special education funding. I just want to make sure I understand everything. So can you tell me what the special education statistical prediction model, what that means, and then its reduction is $2 million. So if you can just explain that to me first, because then it might answer my question.
Sure.
Controller Sabrina Wang.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I will try my best because this is a funding formula set up by ministry. It's a predictive funding model within the special education funding. It's intended to estimate the likelihood of the student requiring special education support and services. Okay. So it is generated through ministry's statistical model rather than the actual identified student needs.
Trustee Butterworth?
Thank you. Yeah, so then that's what I was thinking. So do we then have data? So our enrollment is declining, and I'm sure we have data on this. Do we know from, say, past year number of students who are receiving special education and then the number of students that we're predicting to receive? You know, our numbers are down, but do our special education numbers reflect that decline?
Sabrina Wang?
I will try first, and maybe our superintendent, Wendy House might help us. From the presentation earlier, we have received, it looks like our special education student was increasing year over year. However, as what I explained, some of the ministry funding formula is not shared. There are a lot of factors goes into that calculation. We're trying to reach out to ministry to find out why, as we have more and more education needs student. However, this model, the likelihood of the student to receive special needs looks like it was reduced from the calculation. So this part, if Mrs. Halls can explain a little bit more, there are more information.
Thank you. CEO Colbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Trustee Butterworth. Trustee Butterworth, we can take some of that away, but certainly as Comptroller Wang has shared, the funding formula that comes in on our enrollment is based on a per student enrollment, and so that's how they factor and build the base budget based on that per student enrollment. And so in regard to the reduction of funding, working through and meeting the needs of our students continues to be our work, and understanding where we can align that funding with our existing needs with students. Recognizing we have larger cohorts graduating of students, which of course would have larger cohorts of corresponding of identified students and smaller cohorts coming into the school. But it does not mean that we don't have continuing needs, that we must make sure that we focus and align our resources. So we'll take that away and follow up with coordinating Superintendent House. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Butterworth.
That's great. I would like to know that, because it is, as you know, we're continuing to experience funding pressure. And we hear from our staff and people in the community about you know, the needs that seem to be growing in our classrooms in terms of addressing the challenges that are there. And, you know, seeing I understand with decline means less money, but at the same time, these are our most vulnerable students, and seeing a $2 million reduction when we know it's desperately needed is disheartening to see that. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustees, do we have any further questions? Trustee Michael Chen.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just like to focus my question on that elementary classroom supply funding of $750. Is it actual cash that they're going to send it to us, or is some kind of credit in the bank that you know, we can just use it from a credit? I'm just curious about that part. Thank you.
Sabrina Wang.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I think ministry is going to have a very detailed instruction and question and answer come out in a week. Actually, I think the money is coming through the core education funding and tied to the elementary classroom. But how that being linked to each classroom, all the detail and the instruction needs to become, and we are required to track for all of the spending, everybody's $750 through that year. If the amount has not been fully spent, we are required to carry over to the next year by individual classroom. So there are lots of administrative portion come to that, like associated with this funding as well.
If I could just add, Trustee Chen, I know there's been some comments made that it's a purchase card. We anticipate that it's not going to be that, because it's going to be purchases through Supply Ontario. I anticipate that, as Comptroller Wang said, it'll be cash flow through the grants, and then through our purchasing system, creating POs, et cetera, with the vendor being Supply Ontario. But it won't be a cash card.
Thank you. Trustee Chen. Thank you. Trustee Butterworth.
Thank you. So my next question is from slide 70, where we're talking about the new core ed allocation and the $33.32 that's per student, the benchmark we're saying per student. Do we have data on how much it costs, say, for an average per student, how much it would cost to provide resources, say, like for a math class, like the basic math, literacy, science, social studies, how much it would cost per student to fund the resources that they need? I already kind of know, but I'd be interested to see what that costs, and then compare that to the $33.32. Do we have an idea of that ballpark?
Controller Sabrina Wang.
This is relatively a new investment, and the instructions so ministry's intention was to standardize the curriculum textbooks. So this is on top of what we are giving to the school for their school budget. But on top of that, we don't have a lot of detail on how this is going to work, because it's required through the Supply Ontario as well. And they are in the process of select a vendor, and there are so many different subjects. So most of the boards have been asking the detail and the instructions. We have a lot of questions on this one as well. So it doesn't tie to what each individual student's cost for that at this moment.
Thank you. Trustee Butterworth.
Okay, because I know resources are a little different now. I mean, not so long ago when I was in the classroom, we would purchase, say, a textbook that was kind of your main resource for learning, and teachers would subsidize or, support their curriculum with stuff they purchased on their own. So a textbook back when I was teaching, which wasn't that long ago, was, about $85 to $100 per textbook, times that by 30 kids, times that now by what you need for science, what you need for history, what you need for geography, and all of that. And $33, I realize, digitally it's maybe cheaper, but how are we going to do this, I guess, is my question. Thank you.
So I'll start, and then perhaps CEO Kober would like to add. So this is incremental funding at this point until we get further details. It's curriculum resources, not necessarily textbooks. So again, we're waiting for the details. What we can do is when we bring the draft budget back to F&P on June 8th, hopefully by then, the ministry's provided staff with some clarification and some direction around both the $750, which is really $450, and this 3.6, and provide some information around what the criteria, et cetera, is for that. CEO Kober.
Thank you, A.D. Maharaj, and I'll just contribute to the discussion, Mr. Chair, through you to Trustee Butterworth. And I think the intention is economies of scale in this particular circumstance, where there's larger funding for larger scale resources, whereas not necessarily looking at a class set of textbooks or something which is system-wide, where there is greater value. I think that is the intention, and as we learn more of the rollout, and we will learn more of the application, so it's a little bit more difficult at this moment for us to be able to compare it, because it really is a differentiated approach than we have traditionally used in resources. And so we're looking forward to further details, and welcome to the economies of scale, because we think there's value in that. And if we have an opportunity to find efficiency and value and aligned with our curriculum, excellent. And so we look forward to that. Thank you. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you. Trustee Butterworth?
It's helpful, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further questions? Okay, as there are no further questions, that concludes this item. The next Finance and Property Standing Committee public session is scheduled for Monday, June 8th. Members, please remember that there is a private meeting following this meeting. If you are online, please access it through the private link in your calendar. And seeing that there are no further questions, we'll move to adjourn the Finance and Property Standing Committee public session at 8:27 p.m. If there are no further items, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you to trustees, committee members, staff, and presenters for joining tonight's public session.